What is up everyone, Diluc here with another Genshin Impact video. The Spiral Abyss is often considered one of the hardest challenges in Genshin Impact. It will often be regarded as a DPS check and a stress test for the different teams you put together. From floor 1 to 8, the content is fairly easy and it doesn't require fully built comps in order to beat it. However, from floor 9 to 12, things become much more interesting and the content ramps up in difficulty. You will need to pair units that work well together and synergize with your main carry, as well as a lot of patience to go through this. So let's see what comps I personally use, how I build my units, and how they perform with some gameplay. Before we get into my team comps, let me explain how I perceive team building. I believe that every comp should have a main damage carry that will occupy the field for the longest and will deal sustained DPS. The objective behind this unit is to pump as much damage out to meet the DPS checks. The second unit is usually a sub-DPS or reactive DPS, which is there to amplify the damage output of your main carry by enabling elemental reactions. The third role would be the flex unit. This can be often a burst or utility support that will allow you to control the flow of the combat. Last but not least, the healer role is particularly important in the Abyss since access to food is impossible. Ideally, your healer should be oriented towards providing safety and utility. With that sort of team building in mind, your comps will benefit from more sustainability and efficiency for clearing the Abyss. Now, let's check out my personal teams, where I will explain my unit choices and my builds. My main team, which is literally able to clear every single floor without issues, is obviously where my Diluc shines. In this comp, he will be the main DPS. His focus is consistent damage, boosted by critical hits and elemental reactions. For this reason, he is built with tons of crit rate and crit damage to total a 1:2 ratio. Gearing him with an attack percent sand, pyro damage cup, and crit damage circlet with a focus on crit rate and elemental mastery substats will be optimal. On top of that, I have the Wolf's Gravestone and it works like a charm. The sub-reactive DPS will be Jingshou that will constantly apply the Hydro debuff on targets to proc vaporize with Diluc. He is built with the 2-piece Devastator for Hydro damage and a 2-piece Noblesse for burst damage. I would personally gear him with an energy recharge sands, a Hydro damage bonus cup, and an attack or crit rate circlet. Also, being Constellation 6 with a Refinement 5 sacrificial sword, my Jingshou is definitely nearing the peak of its potential. My flex unit in this team comp is going to be Venti to control the battlefield and enable more DPS. I personally run him with Stringless for more elemental skill and burst damage, but he is also great with the Skyward Harp or Viridescent Hunt for a crit oriented build. Now as the healer, to benefit from the Animal Resonance, I use Jean. Not only does she make my units move faster and consume less stamina, she is also an amazing burst healer for the Abyss, and her Q will act as an instant heal for the entire party. Geared with the Festering Desire and an energy recharge sands, her burst will have a constant uptime and she can act as a battery for Venti, especially on floor 11 where Venti's ult is super important. For the artifacts on those animal units, the Viridescent set is obviously needed on one of them. It will allow them to amplify my elemental damage on a target that is swirled by it. I believe that it is slightly better to run the full set on Jean in order to put more damage into Venti's burst with 2-piece Noblesse and 2-piece Viridescent. However, I use it on Venti for now because I don't have good enough pieces to make the switch. Nevertheless, this duo will bring so much utility and safety to complement this team that it will go through the Abyss without breaking a sweat. So finally, the main combo of this team will be to use the Anemo Shred from Viridescent set on enemies that are affected by Pyro before doing a simple sequence of vaporized reactions with Jingshou's burst and Diluc's E-skill weave combo. It will result into one of the highest damage ceilings in the game and can be further amplified with the Noblesse buff and the Wolf's Gravestone buff. My second team comp is built around Ganyu as a charge shot DPS. This comp is oriented towards high radius AoE damage as well as insane melt damage. In this case, my Ganyu is running the Ammo's Bow with a 4-piece Wanderer's Trap to maximize my charge shot damage. Crit multipliers as well as elemental mastery are incredibly important substats for her. However, she isn't as needy in crit rate because she has built-in increase on her charge attacks and can benefit from the Cry Resonance. As a reactive DPS in this team, I personally use Xiangling for off-field pyro applications. Her weapon, the Skyward Spine, will provide her with high base attack and ER to get her burst more often. My Xiangling is definitely not optimized and not nearing her full potential because her talents are barely leveled up and she's running a full Crimson set, which is probably not worth it because the 4-piece effect isn't really useful on Xiangling in this situation where she's a support, and it seems like a 2-piece Noblesse and 2-piece Crimson will be more beneficial to boost her overall kit. As a flex unit in this team, I am using Albedo, which is very strong especially in the later floors due to his huge AoE damage and radius. Since he is intended to only place his E and step off the field, I'm using the 3-star Arbinger of Dawn on him to boost his crit rate when he's above 90% HP. This will also give him crit damage in the substat, and he will benefit a lot from it since his E scales off of not only defense and geo damage but also crit damage. For this reason, I stacked a very high amount of defense on my circlet and timepiece along with geo damage from Archaic Petra and my goblet. My Albedo's burst is also going to get boosted by this defense because of his C2. But even without it, his burst is worth using because it adds 125 elemental mastery to party members for 10 seconds after casting, and this will add a lot of damage on top of your elemental reactions, making him a nice burst support with reliable utility. Last but not least, we have Chi-Chi, which is going to be the healer in this team. Her really strong active and passive heals will keep all party members safe, and since she's built with a full Noblesse set with ER and attack focus, she is there to amplify my other units on and off field with the party attack boost and also decent damage on her burst. She will also provide the Cryo Resonance for Ganyu, which can be very valuable to land more crit damage. This comp will have 2 main combos for a maximized output of DPS, both of which will be performed inside Albedo's E for more damage because E doesn't impair elemental reactions. The main one is Melt procs on charge attacks with Xiangling's E skill. This takes a bit of practice to time correctly, but it has such a high damage ceiling that it's worth the sweat. The other main combo is a bit more situational but extremely effective against large groups. You started off with Albedo's Q for the Elemental Mastery buff, followed by Xiangling's Q for Pyro application, into Ganyu's Q for melt reactions, and lastly followed by Chi-Chi's Q for the Noblesse buff and healing. Then you will follow this by charging shots on Ganyu for a maximized output while the burst is going on, while Albedo is proccing Transient Blossoms, and while Xiangling is applying melt. Now that you guys are familiar with my units, how they are built, and how I generally play them, I will leave you all with some 3 stars gameplay of certain floors of the Abyss. On that note, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.